Budget Committee meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a full house other than Mike Kennison, who I believe is down at the facilities meeting downstairs. So he is excused at this point. First order of business before we get started is the approval of the September 28th, 2015 minutes. Would anybody like to make a motion to accept the minutes?
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
Any revisions or any edits? I just have one, and it's on page 4, I believe. All right. I'll make a note. I have it highlighted. It's just Town Administrator Fournier and School Business Administrator Fournier, unless he's double duty. It should be Bluen, Christine Bluen. So we just need to make that edit. That's the only thing I saw. Page 4. It's right where it says process for requesting further information from the town or school. It's right in that paragraph. And that is the only thing I saw in here. Okay. All those approval of accepting the minutes as revised, say aye.
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 We should have 3 abstentions, or 2 abstentions, Amy and Mickey. So before we get started, welcome back to the Budget Committee, Amy, as the town representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And then Mike, when he's here, we'll welcome him into the fold as well. So tonight's purpose of the meeting is to dive into the town budget, the proposed budget. So Steve, if you'd like to take over and present the budget, we'll get started.
Okay. I think you all have before copies of the budget as well as this PowerPoint presentation in front of you tonight. Thank you for having me. This tonight is the Town Council's approved operating budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2017. What we do normally is when we start the budget is we look at various figures that people may not consider. One of the first ones that we tend to look at is the CPI, the Consumer Price Index for the region. What this shows is basically the change in the price level of consumer goods for various items. So the first item that we tend to look at nationally, we actually had a very anemic increase in the Consumer Price Index this year. Last year, July 14, 2014, we had an increase in the National Consumer Price Index of 2%. We had an increase in the Northeast Consumer Price Index of 1.8%. And of the Boston Regional, which we usually use our figures of 1.7. However, we only had a 0.7% in the national CPI this past year, and actually the Northeast decreased by 0.2%, and the Boston area increased by 0.2%. One simple reason: oil prices dropped, just fell right through the floor. So that's really the main reason. And one of the other things that everybody talks about when looking at budgets is the Social Security's cost of living adjustment. And they tend to sort of peg certain numbers to that too. Social Security this year announced that they were not giving us an adjustment due to the fact that the Consumer Price Index had very slight growth, if any. So just for some information for the Budget Committee. The other thing we look at, how's our unemployment doing in this around here? First, unemployment continues to drop. The national is down 1 point from 6.5 to 5.5%. The county is next is down another point from 4.8 to 3.8. The state is 4.4, and that went down to 3.5. We have the Portsmouth Metro, which we consider ourselves part of. We're sort of in between two, the Portsmouth Metro and the Rochester-Dover one, but we tend to look more towards the Portsmouth Metro because people work that way. We had a slight decrease from 3.6% to 3.1%. And the town we can break it down that far. I went from 3% to 2.8. That percent, when it comes to unemployment, is negligible. That could just be a fluctuation of seasonal employment or different items, but most statisticians say that's negligible when it comes to unemployment. So we're still doing pretty well with unemployment for the economy. So the current tax rate. Current tax rate, which we said a few weeks ago, is $24.96. I don't think it is any big surprise that about 72%, or all the green here, goes to education, which 61.74 goes to the local portion of the tax rate, and 9.86 is the state school. While they call it the state school, it all stays here, and it just goes back to the school. So it doesn't go to the school and they give it back to us. These lawsuits have been going on forever, and that's just the way they use it. The next number, that is the 4.29%. It goes to the county. We collect that for them, and every December we have to cut a check for hundreds of thousands of dollars so that they can run their operations. And finally, what we're here to talk about tonight is less than 25%, or less than a quarter of the entire tax rate, of $6.02, which is the town. And the next one is just a tax rate, 10-year tax rate comparison. As you can see, the third line up, that's the town. It's remained pretty stable over the last 10 years. In 2006, it was $5.58 per thousand. There was a bump in 2011 of $7.03. And for the last few years, it's been $6.07 and $6.22 and $6.02. So the town tax rates remained rather flat over these years. One thing we did as just an exercise, and it was real simple, I know there's many ways you could figure this out, is we actually compared what the tax rate would be as if you did it by inflation. And we did the simple, take the consumer price index for this region, add it to the tax rate starting in 2006, and then continue on for the 10 years. What you see is, if you were just to increase the tax rate by inflation, it would have been about $6.82 per thousand versus where we are at the $6.02 per thousand. So, and I can tell you that looking at other portions of the tax rate, this number's flipped. The inflation rate is lower than what the actual tax rate's been going up. So that's just sort of some information for the Budget Committee as well.
Steve, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How did you do the adjustment? Did you take into account the fact that the valuation on the denominator side had?
We didn't. We just did the basic consumer price index.
Just multiplied by the
Yeah,
rate.
right.
Figure. Okay.
I mean, the way you'd look at it, though, is if you want to figure out, it can tell you which year the reval was. That was in this, excuse me, between the 607 and the 622. That's when we had the drop. I'll show you that in the next slide, actually, we get there. This is where we had the reval. But as you can see, we're going back, we have added value to the community. We've added $10.5 million in this past year. Mainly that was through partial add of the mills coming on. That we still have 2 more years before the mills are on 100% due to the 79E application that they received. And we also had, due to the residential development down near the Rockingham Country Club and some other homes. And partially we have for the market area behind Weaver's Row. Excuse me, I forgot about it for a second. That just wasn't on 100% on April 1st, and that's where we start taxing what the value is. So, the town council is recommending the following for a bottom line budget. $9,996,942, or an increase of 3.53%. Of that, it's going to be an increase of $340,523, and of that $340,523, $62,293 is an increase in the enterprise funds, which has no impact on taxation, and the remaining $278,230 is all to the other funds, the special funds in the general fund. And just here's a breakdown. The council's proposing a general fund budget of $6,880,668, or about 3.5% increase there. The special revenue is $1,005,493, or an increase of $47,809, or 5%. The special revenue are the library, the solid waste, as well as the recreation revolving fund. The last two are because they receive revenues that go back directly towards them for their operations. And the library is a special revenue because that's just an in and out for us. We have no authority over the expenditures there. The council only has authority over the bottom line. And the final is the enterprise fund, which is actually decreasing. The water fund is actually decreasing by $14,238, or 1.5%. And the sewer is increasing $76,531, or 6.95%. And I'll get to reason why a little later. And just this is a pie chart to compare it. General fund is 54% of this, enterprise is 37%, and the special revenue funds are 9%. And this is just a quick 3-year comparison. What you also see here is what the departments proposed, what I proposed, and what the council ended up adopting. So there wasn't too large of a difference between the council and my proposed budget, and it's pretty level where we were last year. The next is where is the increase going? First, we received our rates from the New Hampshire Health Trust, and we're seeing a guaranteed maximum rate increase on our health insurance of 6%, or $58,758. Retirement, while we don't have an increase in the rate this year, that comes out every 2 years, and we're in the second year of the rates. We are seeing, this is just the impact of their annual increase, which is, if you just got a curiosity, Group 1 employees, so non-police, fire, teachers, the town has to contribute 11.17% to the retirement. Teachers, they contribute 15.67%. What they refer to as Group 2, the police and fire. Police, we contribute 26.38% of their salary, and fire, we contribute 29.16% of their salaries. Workers' compensation and property liability, we're seeing increases in that insurance as well. We have increased the merit pool by 10,000. We reduced it significantly last year, and we're bringing that back up this coming year. Election salaries, we have seen an increase. That's due to the fact that there are 3 elections in fiscal year 17. You have the state primary, the state general election, and then the town meeting, versus recently we've been having one, which is the town election. And the police salary increase in the general fund is due to the collective bargaining agreement that was approved last year, so it's a contractual obligation. The next area that we're seeing increases for contributions to the capital reserve, the increase in building improvement fund is due to the fact that we've been using it and withdrawing, and we need to start replenishing that again, so when we have an issue, we can have the funds there. We can continue the projects. Stormwater management, this is due to projects that will be coming up in the coming year. What we have currently in the capital reserve fund will not cover the current projects as we're estimating. Stormwater management, we're estimating probably about $200,000 to $300,000. This will bring us to about $100,000. And we already have to withdraw from that for engineering. So we're just trying to build that for when the time comes for the project. Same thing with Macintosh Well. We know that's going to come. Odds are when that comes to fruition, we'll probably need to bond it if everything sounds like it's going to be.
On the side, you've got Macintosh Dam.
I do have that again, sorry. Yeah, this should be well. Dam, I'm sorry, McAllen Dam, Macintosh Well, I've been going through it, yeah.
Which one is it?
It's the dam.
Okay.
Recreation facilities, this is to replace playground equipment. We haven't contributed to that capital reserve fund in years. One of the things we want to, I've been talking with the rec director, is to start withdrawing from his capital reserve funds to do projects. I know he's also going to be looking from the current capital reserve to install a splash pad for the summertime and do some other work down in that area. Water and sewer. You're actually seeing all increases in sewer. And the reason for that is in fiscal year 2017, we are going to be operating 2 plants at the same time. This is the beginning of the switchover from the old plant to the new plant. So these items are basically doubled because we have to run double operations that year. We knew it was going to happen, but this is the year we have to budget for it. The next item that we always look at is the revenue. We are estimating, and we do this very conservatively at this point in time, because we'd be estimating where our revenues are going to be almost 2 years from now. So what we look at is what the trends are for the last few years, and we're estimating a 3% increase in general revenues, or $172,573. This is mainly coming from motor vehicle registrations. That continues to tick up. Just people have buying cars again. It's not as much as we saw in the early 2000s with the types of cars, but we are just seeing a larger number of cars being purchased. Building permits are up, as well as planning applications. So those are where we estimated for the revenues. Now the next one, and this is where I always put the caveat, this next slide is an estimate only, using data as we have today. So you don't come down 2 years from now when we set the tax rate and ask, why was it not that number? We're estimating that if this budget were to pass as the council proposed, it would be a tax rate of $6.33 per thousand, or an increase of 21 cents. What we do, and this is how we figure it out, and I'll walk everyone through. What you do is you take the gross appropriations, you back out the revenues that I just mentioned, and then you add something called overlay, which is where we pay our abatements from. Our overlay is very healthy because we haven't had to pay a lot of abatements lately, so we reduced that. In the past, as you can see, we would be almost $100,000. And we did that in those years because we also had the reval. So we reduced that down to $20,000. We add the war service credits. That's the amount that when people who are veterans, they can apply for a war service credit, and it reduces their taxes, so we have to add that amount. So the net town appropriation is $4,570,096, and you take the assessed value and multiply it by that, and then divide it by 1,000, and you get $6.33 per thousand. So what's the impact? The average home value in town is $250,000. The current town portion of a tax bill is $1,505. The proposed would be $1,582 annually, or a 5% increase on your tax bill, or an increase of $77 annually. And that is the presentation.
Questions? So real quick, Steve, just want
Yep.
to make sure I clarify on the slide with the tax impact.
Yep.
It says proposed full year 16. Should that be 17?
Yes, sorry.
I have a question.
Go right ahead, sir.
In the actual budget on page 20, I know I'm skipping way ahead.
Okay.
But it's the slide you just showed. But it's in the actual budget.
It's, well,
Page 20, sorry.
okay.
$6.33.
Yep.
Halfway down, it says if the budget were passed and presented today, it would represent a 43-cent increase over the previous tax rate. Shouldn't that say
Yeah, that should have been a
21?
typo. That was an error.
Okay,
Yep,
just double checking.
thank you. You know, we go through this.
Oh, yeah.
Snow
Yeah,
line.
that's why I
Yeah.
saw that and. But that was,
Yeah,
we haven't gotten that
Like
far.
31.
I just-
yeah, 31. 21.
21.
21.
We get from 02 to 33.
Yeah, 20. Oh, you're right.
32, 31.
Yeah, 31.
Do you want me to address some of the questions, concerns about capital reserves?
Yeah.
There's been confusion in comments about capital reserves and basically how we use them and why we use them. And there's problem too is people misconstrue the term capital reserve and capital improvement plan. Two different things. I'm going to put that out here right now. The capital improvement plan is a plan that department heads and the capital improvement committee present to myself, the budget committee, and to the council to show what our projects we have outlying and for the next 10 years and 6 years. Capital reserve funds are one way we fund those projects. This town in the past has always sort of mixed the two terms and put those interchangeably, and as Councilor Thompson knows, I am continuously correcting individuals when they bring up
We
this.
got it
Yeah,
now.
we're getting there. We're getting there. Capital reserve funds are basically our savings accounts, and that's actually the list of some of the capital reserve funds. And I've got a new computer. I'm trying to figure out how to bring it up on my right screen. Oh well, it's probably easier. What we have in those funds is the money that we put aside, so when the projects come due, we can withdraw that without impacting the tax rate. The Capital Improvement Committee recommended about $3 million worth of capital improvements this year. When they recommend that, it's not the contribution to the funds, that's if we could pay everything out right for those
Shopping-
projects.
It's the shopping list.
It's you're right. When I get the list, I need to take that and figure out, okay, we already have X amount in the funds, and weigh in what can we afford, and what's really a priority when I present my budget. I then present the budget to the town council, and they take my budget and do the same thing. They review it and say, this is what our priorities are. One of the things I noticed this year, and I just heard a lot, that I was cutting everything. And I was sort of, for a little bit there, I was vilified for cutting items. And I'm like, no, they have money available in the capital reserve funds. They need to start withdrawing from there and using that. So that's why that you see such a large decrease there. For a perfect example is recreation. Yeah, that was when I heard somebody basically said, you're going to leave a rusty playground there because you cut the recreation capital reserve fund. I said, no, we have almost $200,000 in the capital reserve fund that they can withdraw from and do that project already. I think for so many years, there was so much concern about the operating budget that department heads were afraid to come to the council to withdraw money to do projects. And I said, no, that you need to do that in order to go the next step and do the next one. And so we are. As I said, the recreation has at least 2 projects coming forward, maybe a third with a vehicle. I appointed a committee made up of staff, including the building inspector, the director of public works, the buildings and grounds supervisor, and the finance director, who is going to be a facilities committee for us. They need to come up with a master plan on what we're going to be doing next and how we're going to be withdrawing funds from there to do that. The police and fire, I mean, their plans are pretty much written out. When they buy a car, they replace the funds. When they buy a cruiser, and the trucks, they're a lot of money, so we do have to put the money aside for a number of years to do that. I've also mentioned that we need to look at other financing. We have very little debt on the town side. The only bonding we have out there is for the downtown project, which we pay through a capital reserve, so that's null and void. The other one is we bought land for conservation a number of years ago that we have money for. A lot of larger communities, when planning their capital improvement programs, they issue debt. And when the debt's retired, they issue debt on top of that to always have a constant way to pay for the capital projects. What we're doing instead is taking the cash, putting it aside, and only doing it once we build it up enough. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. You put the money aside and you save it and do it that way. But also, if you have to issue debt, you're going to get a spike on your tax rate that year. For example, the one big thing that we keep continuously talk about are roads. You saw that we did add more money this year, but at some point in time, we're probably going to have to do a larger project when it comes to this. And right now, the university is doing the study. They're doing a complete survey of all the roads. We just met last week, and they're updating it again just for some of the things we met. But I asked them to do it two ways. One, what should we be doing annually? But also, let us be able to say, well, we can't afford what we should be doing. Let us figure out what we can afford that year. And they said, no, that makes absolute sense. So we are getting there. So I just want to make sure it's clear that we didn't cut the capital project, the budget, capital improvement program. We just want to fund it by withdrawing from the capital reserve funds what they're there for.
So on page 18 in the introduction, you've got the revenue list.
Yeah.
And you've got zeros for proposed from capital reserve funds. Is that different from what you're talking about?
Yeah, yes. Because that's a budget, that's a line for the state that we have to have in there.
Okay.
We withdraw separate, we don't book it as a revenue at this point.
Okay. So that's why that's that way.
That's why it's a zero.
Bookkeeping thing.
What you would see is when we go to the council and say we want to do paint the town hall, or when we renovated the auditorium, I had to go to the council and say, I need to withdraw $10,000 to renovate the auditorium from the capital reserve funds. Can we do that? And
So
that
it doesn't
falls-
hit as a revenue
It
and
doesn't.
expense, it's
Right,
just nothing?
it's just nothing.
Okay. And then where it says use of fund balance, that's general fund balance?
Correct,
Okay.
that's what's commonly referred to as surplus. What we used to be doing is every October, there would be a discussion of when we're gonna use fund how much fund balance are we gonna use? And depending on the discussion, you could either have, we don't have enough to use it, or we're gonna buy it all the way down, the tax rate down, and artificially deflate the tax rate. So what we've been doing, and the council approved a policy when I first got here, is that the use of fund balance is now a budgetary item. We budget it and we say this is what it's gonna be, and we try to match that closely to what our contributions out of the capital reserve funds. So if we ever have an issue that we have, for some reason, the fund balance isn't healthy enough, we're not impacting operations, we'll be impacting a contribution to the capital reserve funds, which we already have there. So it's something you probably do in your own home anyways, that if you have more money than expected, you wash it into your savings accounts versus balancing your operations on it. So that's why we do it that way. So it's, we usually do about $400,000 to $550,000. Lately, that's been coming in because our revenues have been higher. On the flip side, the number between what we budget and what our actual expenditures has been shrinking because of the work that the budget committee, the council, and department heads have been doing to budget closer to actuals. Because you used to have that as a big number as well. I think the highest I saw was almost $500,000 one year. And now we're down to, this year was less than 100,000. And that was because of snow as well.
79,000
Yeah.
or something like that.
But usually it's in the area of 150 to 200. And the reason why you still have that little bit is because exactly what happened last year. If we had a couple more blizzards or large snowstorms, or heaven forbid, in the spring, all that snow melted at once, that's why you have a little bit extra in there. But it's just getting tighter on our end, but we're managing it too. So
what is your forecast then, if all the capital projects that were approved by CIP go forward, and I know they may not, and the additions to the capital reserve funds in here go forward, what is right now, the total balance of all of this, I believe, was 2.5 or 3? If there's no total under the fund levels, but I think it was around 3 million. So end of fiscal year 17, what is your forecast of what the balance is, or the total balance will be?
I don't have a forecast. Yeah, you're right. It's about a little under 3 million. It'd probably be about the same. I mean, if from what our plans to withdraw, is pretty much what we're asking to place back in. I don't see a huge.
Whoa, that is you said you were planning to withdraw.
We are
fund some
we
other
are.
things.
And
So
we
which is it?
if you let me finish,
Yeah,
I'll,
sure.
what I said was, we are planning to withdraw.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying we're doing all the project that the capital improvement committee said.
Okay,
We are withdrawing probably, and we are at the same time, since we're still in this current fiscal year, I'm trying to replenish it with funds in the operating budget.
okay.
So we're not going to see a large withdrawal. The reason why, too, I want to see a plan from department heads, what they want to do from the capital reserve funds. So you'll probably be close to where we are, same number, 2.9. If we didn't, you'd probably be closer to 3.5 to 3.7,
Okay,
because nobody's been withdrawing from the capital reserve funds. What I'm saying now to them is, start doing the projects, but I want to see it done in a correct manner. What the CIP committee sees is, okay, I need a truck. We'll use highway because highways are trucks and everybody knows what a truck is. I need a dump truck this year, a snowplow this year, a bucket truck this year, and a pickup truck the following year. They put in all the money across the board for the contribution each year. So one year they're going to put in $80,000 because that's what they figured a percentage of the breakdown is. And the next year they'll put 75 because it may have dropped because they just bought the new truck, so they don't need as much. What I do on my side is, I need to say, when the withdrawals is when those actual withdrawals, we can even recommend that, but we've also had the council say no. You know, I know you're recommending buying a truck, but we don't think the truck can get another year out of it, another 2 years out of it. So I can't predict what the council's going to do either.
fair enough. That's
Yeah.
why I
Yeah.
conditioned the question the way
Yeah.
that I did.
So,
So, I mean, let me pick on one that I think was as close to non-controversial as anything we did, the fire protective equipment.
yep.
I mean, the fund balance is 327, we're proposing to add 50 to it, and 319 needs to be spent right away, so that one is coming down.
If they give us a proposal, and that's the key, the department heads need to propose and withdraw the funds, then that would come down all the way. And yes, it'd have less money in there, but that's what we need to find, right? I would rather have the capital reserves funds at some point be close to zero, because they did the project they were saving for, and then we have to finance it, replenish it, excuse me. But we just haven't been doing that. It just hasn't been withdrawn. And that's what we're trying to start doing now, is to actually do the withdrawals to do the projects. But you're right. I mean, fire equipment, I look, short of, cutting schools or cutting guns for police officers, fire equipment, they need it. But they also have the funds there to do it. And that's the key. That's why I said I can't ask the taxpayers to fund something that already has the money sitting there. And I just need them to come in with a proposal to withdraw it. And that's up to them. And I'm working with them to do so. So I just don't want to make it sound like it's me against the department heads either.
And
It's
this has
just,
been a consistent problem.
it's been a
Having
consistent,
people actually put the time in to put those proposals together so they can get access to the funds, and that's why these.
no,
funds-
not quite. I think it was a mentality for a long time that, twofold. One, they just kept saving because the worst case scenario, they need to have a fund there just in case. Well, a just in case fund is also what insurance is for. If something were to happen to a truck, catastrophic, the truck would be replaced by our insurance carrier. And, that's one thing I always heard too, is like, if something happens to a truck, I need to replace it. Well, yeah, we have insurance to do those things as well. But I think the other part was, a few years ago, they turned the spigot off, for lack of a better term. People weren't asking for the funds because there was a concern in town that there was spending out there was out of control. Not thinking that capital reserve funds are separate from the general fund, and it has, once you appropriate to be placed in the capital reserve fund, that's already been expended. You can't use it for anything else, so it can't go back on fund balance. And I think that's what people were thinking, that, if I don't spend from the capital reserves, that'll help on the bottom line at the end of the year, but it doesn't, because it's completely separate from the operating budget. And I think finally they're starting to see, okay, then I can start using these funds. I know recreation is really keen on starting to use these. especially with his new special revenue fund, because he's seeing not only that he has capital reserve funds, but he's creating surpluses in his special revenue funds because of successful programming. So he's trying to now manage, okay, I may not have to go to the capital reserve fund for all my capital items I need. I can withdraw from my surplus from the special revenue fund. So I do want to make a clarification too for this year. The town meeting process is going to be completely different for the town. Last year, a charter amendment was passed allowing for all contributions to capital reserve funds to be in the operating budget. So that just goes back to our past practice. Well, in addition, when reviewing the charter and talking to the town attorney and DRA, creation of capital reserve funds is not a financial duty. It's not, you're not raising any money. So it's not only thing that the town meeting in our form of government's for is to raise and appropriate funds. In the past, so to create a capital reserve fund, we used to go to town meeting. The RA and the town attorney looked at it and said, no, that's a part of the legislative body or the town council. Because there's no money being appropriated to be placed in those funds. The council, we had one already, it was defeated, but the council had a proposal to create a storm or an emergency capital reserve fund. And it said no money will be appropriated until going through the budget process. So from now on, the warrant, unless there's an issuance of debt or a petition article, which only can be financial, is going to be one question. Are you in favor of whatever the bottom line the budget committee puts forward, and on top of that, whatever the default budget is? So
And that's it.
What?
That's it.
That's it. That is it's once you go to the fact that all contribution to capital reserve funds are in the operating budget, there's nothing really else that's out there, because the council is a legislative body for all other items. Needless to say, when scheduling deliberative session, we shortened the amount of time that we expected the town go first. So
Because what did we have last year, like 22? Or I mean, I know that was when we had to break it all out.
we had 22. We were going 20 minutes until the petition warrant article about Lamprey came up, and then we ended 45 minutes.
It's still a deliberative session.
It's still a deliberative session.
People can come in.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely. I just don't want people to be surprised that
Issues or
yeah.
whatever, but
Interesting.
Well, so basically, my belief is what I'm going to do is almost do another presentation like this at deliberative session to explain the budget instead of just reading the one line. Just so the budget committee understands what's going to be going on there now. So it's going to be different than the school side.
Jeff?
I got one more, I guess.
Sure.
So I don't know if it's the wrong idea to jump ahead to the forecast, but it pertains just, for me, to one thing that you just said.
Yep.
That you said you really want to drive home the fact that the capital reserve funds are different from the budget.
Yes.
So the increases that you show in the forecast can't be offset by spending down the capital reserve funds.
No.
Okay.
No. The increase in the five-year projection in the back of the budget, you mean? No, those are very safe. You know, we don't want to say that we're going to have a drop, or, you know, we're trying to be safe and
I get
understand
that.
where we are in 5 years. No, that's not to offset withdrawals from the capital reserve. Those are things that we're considering.
Maybe I said it wrong. I don't mean that the increase is to offset and replenish.
Yeah, no.
I mean, it can't, the rate can't be bought down.
By withdrawing.
spending, yeah.
Right, none of those items our estimates and increases in the operating is increases in operations, not capital. So we're estimating things such as the impact on health insurance with the new plan, and we don't know what the federal program's going to look like ultimately. Put on top of that, the market in New Hampshire is shrinking for healthcare providers. Municipalities and schools are only allowed to go to, we're allowed to go to whoever, but only a few will actually want to insure us. One left the market about a year ago, another one entered. And the big one is the health trust. The other big concern that we have coming 5 years, in the next 5 years, is our liability insurance. Just to let everybody know, these aren't, when I say insurance, it's not insurance what everybody considers it. These are pools. They're risk pools. We all contribute money to these pools, and we withdraw to pay claims across the state for municipalities. This all came about in the mid-'80s, where at one point in time, private insurers were insuring municipalities, and they said, you know what? There's too much risk there. You know, you've got issues where police, fire, how often we get called about potholes, even though we're not liable. Those are the kind of things the insurance company in the mid-'80s said, we're done writing for municipalities. So the municipalities in the state pulled together, said, okay, pool your money, and we'll start doing a pool like they did for health insurance. Health insurance is the same way. We just buy the product from Blue Cross Blue Shield, well, in our situation. Well, that company that was founded in the 80s is now is writing their coverage down. They're not accepting any more, and they'll probably be out within a few years if everything goes as planned. So that will leave all of our insurance, liability insurance, unless the private sector wants to get back in, under one risk pool in the state. So that means that there's no competition, and that risk pool will have to take everybody, no matter what their history is. And if you have we don't have a lot of claims, but I've seen pools go up because of another community having a very large claim. That's going to hit us. Retirement costs are going to hit us. That continues to increase. You know, one thing we don't get, we get no aid. We get no aid from the state except the room and meals tax, and we don't know where we're going to be on that. They used to contribute to retirement, and they don't do that any longer. Because it was funny, I was asked that recently. Well, what happens if if the state reduces their aid to the communities? I go, that's been gone a long time ago. We don't bet on that anymore. Other than that, it's just a normal cost that we have. I mean, we're not looking at we don't see ourselves adding anything in the next few years. I mean, we have a pretty good size community, and we have a lot of services for this size community. We don't see a full-time fire department or any situation like that coming down the pike. But so there's no new programming in that forecast either. It's just what we're expecting the regular costs to be, and by looking at history and trying to project what may come.
Can you get into detail on one of the lines for me?
I will try. My finance director was more the guru on this, so I will.
Well, you mentioned that we have very low debt.
Yes.
And that towns often issue debt. In the budget section, I thought we were only $100,000 for principal and some interest, 30
That's water and sewer.
That's just water and sewer?
No, water and sewer is that $1 million you're looking
okay.
at.
Yeah.
That's why.
All right, so is that
That's-
planned? That's
the wastewater plant.
okay.
Yeah, we have to start paying that off, so we have to, it's not going to impact the taxes, it's going to impact the rates, and we've already been planning for that. We've been gradually putting the rates up, so you won't see a spike when that comes in.
But you do have one.
We do, in 2000,
Yeah, same year.
yeah, and we already have the money in place to pay that, and then it goes down from there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, that's the projection when you see the revenues. Rates are included in that revenue, and the same with the expenses. So, that debt is for the wastewater, the well, the water line upgrades, those kind of projects. That's just the debt payment in those years.
So that's already passed warrant
Already
articles?
passed, already done. That's when we start paying.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You had some.
Back to the capital reserve. What entities will determine whether it's a capital reserve project or not?
Town council.
The reason why I ask is last year I brought up body cameras for the police.
Yep.
Wanted them to have them.
Yep.
They should have them.
Yep.
I thought they needed it to come from the fund. It ended up being a budgetary line item.
Yep.
What's the change in thought? from, why wasn't that considered a capital reserve project, quote
It
unquote
was a
project?
1 year, it was a 1 year project.
Would not, I'm not nitpicking, I'm just saying, swing sets, bleachers, roof replacement, we hope it's only a 1 year project.
Well, no,
$10,000, obviously
no.
you gotta repair a roof every now and then, but,
There's also limits that the CIP committee puts in. Has to be over a certain threshold, has to have a certain lifespan, that they request that you put it in a capital reserve fund versus a budgetary item. This was a one-time $12,000. Didn't think we had to go through the process of contributing to capital reserve to withdraw from the capital reserve.
sure, it was.
Put in the operating.
The question was more of, the town council's gonna determine whether it's a,
Absolutely.
not picking on recreation, but we also donate and give to the Newmarket Athletic Association $21,000 a year.
We do.
Do they work together at all?
They
And
do.
try
They
to
do.
help control some expenses of stuff?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They do. Because if you didn't have Newmarket Rec, it'd probably be much higher because we'd have to
Sure,
run all
but
those
it-
baseball leagues. And on the flip side, if we didn't put money into maintaining the fields, they would have to contribute to make sure the fields were maintained to the level that they need.
Mhm.
So yes, they do all the time.
The reason why I asked about who came up with the entity, or what entity will come up with the idea, I didn't know if it was an expenditure, if the police department comes to you
Yep.
with a $3,000 proposal, the town council's going to decide whether or not that should come capital reserve or
Oh, no,
be a
that's-
budgetary line item.
There's certain thresholds as well, correct. If it's a $3,000 item, that will be a budgetary item. That's a one-time, that's not, it's a $10,000 threshold
Okay.
for a contribution to the capital reserve fund. And we even look at that and say, look, there's some projects that are $10,000, but they don't really fall under the contribution to capital reserve funds. We haven't had many lately, but that's normally what happens. I can tell you, I've been in communities where police cruisers are not considered a capital item. Computer systems are not a capital item. The reason? You go through those annually.
Mhm.
A capital item should be a larger project that's done after saving a certain number of money. Those are operational costs. So, I mean, that's another thing that we probably need to look at in the future.
So even like on page 15, the CIP committee is recommending 1.28 million. Some of these items of recommendations, even though it's been dropped down, would still be considered a possible budgetary, it's going to be a conversation between town council, department heads,
Yep.
yourself, and say.
Absolutely. A lot of
okay,
those things will probably still be done, but it'll be a
Bleachers.
withdrawal from what's already existing.
Sure,
We're
okay.
not appropriating money to do those things.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess the question that I have, and I know it's a 5-year proposal and it's kind of a shot in the dark, but before we get into Henny Penny, the sky is falling. After 2017, we see some pretty significant jumps in the tax rate. Very significant jumps. And, obviously combined with what we could see on the school side, 2018 could be a 2011 type of year again. So how do I say this? Are we playing it too close this year to where then next year the 2018 budget when we sit down next year is going to be a more difficult conversation because there'll be some things that are hitting us that, I know we got the sewer water and things like that are all starting to come, but that's a 25% increase in the tax rate. I know it's an estimate. Forecast and it's an estimate, but that's
And
still a large jump.
I don't think you're going to have that high of a discussion.
Okay.
You'd almost need a 2008 situation of the markets
Crashing.
collapsing, and we're just not at that level. Most people had that issue in 2008 for municipalities because in the previous year you were receiving interest on investments in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the next year you got $5,000. That's where you had the big hit. I think the finance director, when he's discussing it with me, he was just being very conservative, saying, well, what other large projects may we have coming in for building permits? You're right, there aren't many parcels of land that could sustain a huge thing. However, we're talking maybe $100,000 in building permits. That's not an unheard of thing. It would have to, you know, if we don't have building permits, we look at ways to reduce the operating side. But I think this is just a worst-case scenario if we didn't have the revenues coming in as even he would consider to be very conservative.
I mean, I'm asking because, I mean,
No, absolutely.
for the last few years, I mean, you've kind of floated between 6 and 640-ish, somewhere right in that range as far as the tax rate for the town. So all of a sudden to see you to go to 8.
In all honesty, in the past 10 years,
Yeah.
we've been.
That's why I'm
that,
saying, like, this is
except
the
that
first
one.
time I've seen
Yeah.
the town really tick up.
My philosophy would be is if we had that significant of an increase, I think the council would look at me and say, you need to cut expenses. This is just a projection. If
Everything plays out as
everything
is.
blows up, we don't like to have out there that everything's going to be perfect, because I don't want to have everybody come back and say, well, you told us. Yeah.
And as you said, that projection is based mostly on the changes in the
Insurance world, and that's still.
We don't know.
Very volatile right
Right.
now.
And like I said, it's, everybody is discussing around more the federal policy. We're discussing the local, the state, because that's very volatile right now. I mean, it's up in the air. The Secretary of State, we don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
And for some reason, in the state of New Hampshire, the Insurance Commission doesn't oversee our insurance, the Secretary of State does. Go figure.
Live free or die.
Yeah, it works out that way.
I mean, that doesn't look like the biggest jump, though, insurance. Other cost is what's going from 4.7 in fiscal year 17 to 5.3 in fiscal
Some of those
year
are
18.
operational for the wastewater plant, so while you're seeing it, you're not gonna see it on the rate.
Okay.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah,
So some of these numbers that are in here, they're already in, we've already paid into
We
some
already
of
know.
that.
Right.
Okay,
because that's when you're gonna have the new plant coming online.
right. Yeah, I saw the 2019 is when the real big jump up in the debts are, I mean, it doubled.
Right.
So that's the year to Jeff's question, that's the year, okay.
I think you got that, you've got the new well, because you'll have the wastewater plant, you have McIntosh well, you'll have everything coming online, and the rates will be hitting it.
So 2019 is going to be a fun year. Any other questions?
Next steps?
Yeah.
Do you want every department head in?
I don't think we need every department head in here. I think the key ones are the,
Police, fire,
police,
public
fire,
works,
public works.
water,
I mean,
sewer.
Yeah, water,
Yeah.
sewer, the ones that, I mean, I don't think library and things like that, because
Yeah.
really, there's nothing that can be done to that. But
Right.
I think the major ones that contribute to this is what we need to know. So that'll be next Monday. Monday. Any other questions on Steve's proposal before we get to the department heads next week?
Council's proposal, my proposal.
Council's
sorry.
proposal, sorry. Council's
If you
proposal
wanna
that
go
Steve is reading to us, there you go. We'll go with the council's because Steve's is higher.
That means you're not taking the flag for it anymore.
Yeah.
Council is. Yeah, I know. Nice job, sir.
Just one thing, Dave.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Why does the overlay take such a dip for 2017? You know, it looks like it does one of those, right?
We haven't been using it.
Looks like you're coming back to planning on using it in 18, 19. going
Oh,
forward.
that's,
Why does it?
if we have a lot of abatements, I would bring it back up to that level. We haven't had that many abatements, and usually, and we have to be up again in 18 for the revow. 18 or 19 is the revow, this is fifth, that'll be the year 5. So odds are 19, we're gonna bump it up again.
Well, yeah, it looks like you have a plan to bump it up significantly.
Right.
Between 18 and 19. But the line just goes, it drops fairly significantly for 17. And then comes right back up again for 18.
And that's,
Doubles
and
for
again,
19.
this year,
We won't, though, not for 18.
odds are we won't next year. I mean, again, unless I have some large outstanding abatement, which I don't at this point in time, unless somebody hasn't told me. We have enough funds.
Knock wood, I like
I know, knock on wood, I do that. We have the funds to cover abatements at this point. I was actually pleasantly surprised during the last reval. Of course, values dropped, but we didn't get a lot of abatements. If the market flipped and went crazy like it did, I was in a community during the last time when it went sky high. $100,000 wouldn't have been able to cover the number of abatement applications that we received. And again, that's only the ones we give out.
Right.
So, when we put money into the overlay, that rolls over. So if you don't withdraw it, it stays there. And we just haven't been we were looking at, since I've been here and since the finance director been here, how many abatements do we give out in a year? And it just wasn't close. So that's why you saw the huge drop this year, because the money was already there.
Just hoping you take a couple minutes and walk me through a process real quick. 'Cause
Okay, I'll try.
I'm a rookie, and I
Yep.
want to make sure I understand this 100%. When I'm on, and let me make sure I understand this correctly, on page 50, when we're looking at Capital Reserve Fire Department, and the department had proposed $408,650.
Yep.
Which was a massive increase from the year before. And both the town administrator and town council proposed $50,000. That's not an indication that the funds will not be available to buy that safety equipment. That just means they have to go through the fund itself.
As of right now, this
And then go to the town council
Right.
with that proposal for that specific need.
As of September 1st, there was $327,751 in the capital reserve fund.
Correct.
Yes, not every project that they're requesting is gonna be done through this.
But for
But-
something as important as the safety equipment.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
If there's something they need to withdraw, they need to come forward and ask for
Right.
the funds.
And the reason you're saying that hasn't been done in the past is for the same reason when I'm saving for a vacation and then all of a sudden I have to pay for it, I'd much rather find another means rather than digging into my savings
Exactly.
account to do it.
It's
It's a safety net.
they've not been asking for the withdrawals. And that's, if they have the money there, they need to request it instead of
And
continuously.
they're
putting
not
it in
asking
there.
for the withdrawal simply because they just like to know it's there?
Some do. Some, it's because, some are saving up for larger projects.
Okay.
And that's part of that $500,000, whatever that number was.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm jumping in. So if they need $500,000 worth of projects, the CIP says, okay, you need $500,000. When the administrator or the council cuts it, it's not that we're saying you can't have $500,000 projects, it's just that you don't get to send a bill twice for it. Does that make any more?
The money's there, so you use the money that's
Right.
there.
I'm asking you to use the
That's what
funds
it was
you already
raised
have.
for already, yes.
Okay.
Like, Public Works, they've got $570,000 in their fund.
It just seems
Yeah.
like clearly I'm not the only one who's
Yeah.
confused about it.
No, absolutely, and trust me, as soon as I cut it, I'm vilified right after, like, but you're sitting there on money that you can already do a lot of these projects you're requesting
Right.
this year.
Okay.
So,
Just to double check,
yep,
make sure that I don't make a rookie mistake. On page 50, you've got the actual expenditures for the capital reserve funds are the same as the budget, so they've already been paid into.
that's all, yeah, it's
And
just a
that-
transfer.
That's included in the September 1st fund
Yes.
levels? Got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I could, yeah. And you're gonna, that should be closest to 100%, because that's all it is a transfer,
Yep.
so.
So this is more just a line of thinking, but you kind of said it earlier. So the goal really right now is try to use these capital reserve funds to pay for the things we need to, and when we are faced with these larger projects, that's when we'd go to some type of debt or something like that.
If we were to have to build a building, road system, we would probably, we would have to issue
Yeah.
debt. I mean, we couldn't, I couldn't come into the council and say, I have a $750 to $2 million road project. I want to bump the tax rate up 1 year to do it and then reduce it again, because then you're not going to get a stable tax rate.
Right.
So what you do is you'd come up with a bunch of projects like that, issue the debt, have the money sitting there, withdraw it, do the projects, and you'd have a flatter increase than you would if you did a one-time spike and drop it.
Which is the bonding on the wastewater.
Right.
Right.
Though we
Exactly.
would bond something
I know we've done the
bigger.
big things like the wastewater and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that, but, I mean, we keep dancing around it, but the road thing just keeps coming
Oh,
up. and
absolutely.
I just feel like that's the next
The
one
road
that
will,
we might
roads
have
will
to
be the next
approach.
thing.
Okay.
And we,
That's also why it's important to keep an eye on the town's total bonding capacity.
right, the town, and understand when we say town's total, that
That includes
means
the school.
everybody.
Yeah, I got it.
The only ones who can issue debt, I mean, they can issue debt, but it impacts us. They look at our books, and we have to sign our life away as well, because, I don't know if everybody is aware of this, we collect the money for everybody, and we have to write the check no matter what over everybody. So if we don't have the money, we also have to borrow the money for everybody. So that also includes something called tax anticipation notes, which we haven't had to do yet, and we don't want to do that. But those are the kind of items that we have to monitor to make sure.
Okay. Anything else? All right.
Okay,
We will see you next week.
thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
So if you get home and read more stuff and have more questions, jot them down for next week, because we'll have the open dialogue next week, and we'll be able to dig in a little bit more line by line if there's questions you guys have. Anything else for this week? So we have our meeting next week, the 30th for session 2, and then I gave you guys the school budget that Christine brought down, so that'll be December 7th. That we'll do that, and then we have the budget hearing for the town on the 14th. And then depending on how the 7th goes, we may have a session with the school on the 21st. We'll see how it goes. It's tentative because I know there's some people that may not be around, so. And Craig, you're not here on the 7th, right? That's right, you're in Colorado.
I won't be here on the 21st, if that.
Yeah, that one may be tentative because I think there's too many. I
Oh,
don't know.
wait.
I think we'll have a quorum.
Actually, no, I will be here on the 21st. It's
All right.
It's the Monday after I won't.
Well, we're not having it the Monday after,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the Chris, yeah.
Never mind.
So other than that, is there anything else that you guys have tonight? If not, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second that?
All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. See you all next week.